Welcome to Fresh Catholic, a podcast for those who are converting, reverting, or simply want a fresh perspective of the Catholic faith to help them to open their hearts and minds to become closer to the love and goodness of Christ. My daily prayer is that I will be a bright light to others, to be filled with the love and light of Christ, so that when people look at me, they see Him radiating out from me for His glory. Hello and welcome. I'm Lori Balderas, and I'm so happy you're here. Well, this is Lent 2024. That's what this episode is going to be, folks. So we're going to get to it in just one sec. But first, some Fresh Catholic news. My online store is still there. It's still sitting there waiting for you. And, of course, we have Fresh Catholic coffee. And all these things are exclusive to Fresh Catholic. You can't get it anywhere else. So go have a look at freshcatholic.com. We have 17 choices of coffee, maybe more. I've lost count. But go check it out. That's going to help our ministry when you purchase some coffee. So thank you so much. Links are in the show notes. If you just go look, it's just a click away. Click on the links and you can go to all sorts of things for Fresh Catholic. I don't know if you know this, but I already have a commercial out on social media for the podcast. But keep your eyes out for a new commercial that's coming for Fresh Catholic coffee. So I'm excited about that. I happen to know a guy that can film me, so that makes it extra fun. I also have a Patreon. If you go to my website at freshcatholic.com, head to the bottom of any page and click on the Patreon icon. Please become a friend, in quotes, of mine. You won't know what I'm talking about if you don't check it out. You're going, friend? I thought I was already her friend. Well, go check out the Patreon, and there are 5 different levels to choose from, and any of them would be helpful and appreciated. It will help financially help the podcast, so please go check it out. Fresh Catholic Daily, the daily readings, they are just on fire right now, folks. These are in addition to the weekly longer topic episodes. These are very short. They're under 10 minutes for sure, maybe even under 8 minutes. Listen in the car, listen when you're getting ready for work, listen when you're cooking, on a walk, and listen as a family. That would be so nice. It would be a good Lenten addition. I love doing speaking events. Please invite me. Also, is anyone interested in an online event with me or in a retreat, me coming and talking at one of your retreats, or I'm thinking about maybe putting on one myself. So let's keep an eye out for that. Contact me at lori@freshcatholic.com. That's my email. If you have any questions, comments, requests, just email me and I'll email you back. Please listen, like, rate, review, and share the podcast. That will help me in many ways. Please follow me on social media at Fresh Catholic and share with your friends. Keep an eye out for Fresh Catholic 40, a countdown to Easter, that will be on my social media. There will be a video a day for 40 days. So go check that out as well. Okay, please welcome Simon Balderas.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing good, thank you.
So this week is Lent.
It is.
Dun, dun, dun. It's also Valentine's Day, strangely enough. Ash Wednesday and Valentine's Day are on the same day.
Oh, wow.
That's a cruel joke.
I didn't realize that.
You didn't?
No.
It's a cruel, cruel joke. Think about it. It's Ash Wednesday. Don't go out to dinner. Don't eat that chocolate. Don't drink that wine.
That's fun.
We actually have to, what's that called? What's that called? We have to abstain that day.
Yeah. Wow.
Cruel.
Yeah.
Cruel joke.
We can be creative.
We'll just celebrate early. Celebrate Valentine's Day early.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. I think there's going to be a lot of Catholics out celebrating. You'll know who the Catholics are who are celebrating early. The restaurants will be going, why are there all these people here? Well, they're Catholic. Because Ash Wednesday, they have to do that. So, are you ready for Lent?
I am ready for Lent, and I know we've kind of been in Lent ourselves for quite some time.
We have.
Yeah.
We've been in a state of Lent. You and I have been in Lent personally for the past few months.
Yeah. I think that when you have a lot of trials and tribulations, you really have a tendency to go, I do anyways, have a tendency to go inward and really reflect on your life, on your purpose, on all of those things. And that really is what Lent is about. It's about self-reflection. It's about reflecting on what Christ did for us, but it's a time of hoping for the future.
And also, I knew this, but today when I was researching some things, I don't want to say I forgot this. I never forget this. But the 40 days are to remind us of when Jesus was in the desert before his ministry.
Right.
Yeah. You're saying like thinking about what he went through as far as the passion.
Right.
But actually, we're supposed to be thinking of ourselves in the desert like Jesus was, being tempted and all those things. So I just thought that was kind of interesting today. Remember, I'd like to say I'm new to this, but again, I'm not. I've been now Catholic for 10 years, if you can imagine.
Yeah.
10 years in April. So before we move on, I just want to talk about a couple of things, and then we're going to chat about Lent, okay? Mm-hmm. So first of all, this episode, just so everybody knows, is going to be a little bit different because last year, Lent 2023, I did 3 episodes about Lent.
Uh-huh.
That was before you, Simon Balderas, before you were my co-host. So it was just lonely old me. But I suggest you go back, my listeners, go back and listen to the 3 episodes I did. One was on Lent, episode 7. One was on prayer, episode 8. And one was on fasting and almsgiving, episode 9. Go back and listen to those. Those are more factual. Those have some good ideas in those episodes. But I wanted to do this episode a little bit different. I didn't want to just redo those. I wanted to have a different thing, especially since you're my co-host now, so we'll have more of a conversation. But I encourage you to go back and listen to those episodes. So first of all, what is Lent exactly? So I want to be really factual about this because I'm not an expert or a theologian, so I want to go to the source, which is the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops,
okay.
USCCB. This is according to them.
Okay.
Lent is a 40-day season of prayer, fasting, and almsgiving that begins on Ash Wednesday and ends at sundown on Holy Thursday. It's a period of preparation to celebrate the Lord's resurrection at Easter. During Lent, we seek the Lord in prayer by reading sacred scripture, we serve by giving alms, and we practice self-control through fasting. We are called not only to abstain from luxuries during Lent, but to a true inner conversion of heart as we seek to follow Christ's will more faithfully. We recall the waters of baptism, in which we were also baptized into Christ's death, died to sin and evil, and began new life in Christ. So that's Lent.
Okay. I find it interesting in that definition that repentance isn't necessarily mentioned, because when I think of Lent, I think it's also a time of repentance. I think it's a perfect time to practice the sacrament of reconciliation.
I agree.
Yeah.
And actually that you say that, so on Ash Wednesday, which is a big day, it's a very big day in the church. And since I work at the church, I can assure you that we get so many people that come that day. I don't believe it's a holy day of obligation,
It's not.
but so many people come for their ashes who we don't normally see. They're coming for this, and it's exciting. I wish those people would continue coming to Mass, but it's very exciting. I know it's very meaningful to people. And at our church, I don't know if other churches do this, but we even have a drive-through ashes at our church, and the line of cars is around the block.
Huh. When did that start?
That started, I believe, during COVID, but they've kept it going because it was so wildly popular last year. It was very popular. So while we very much encourage people to come to Mass to get their ashes, if you're not able to, if your schedule doesn't allow, you can do a drive-through ashing at our church at Our Lady of the Assumption. But anyway, so the repentance. So this is interesting. So when ashes are put on a person's forehead, there's two things that someone can say. One is, remember that you are dust, and to dust you shall return. The other thing is, repent and believe in the gospel.
Okay.
That's the one I do when I put ashes on people. So you're right. That's a big thing.
Yeah.
But in that description, it's not in there.
Yeah, I find that interesting.
And confession is very important during Lent. You're supposed to go at least once during Lent.
Yeah. I think it's sort of assumed that if you're self-reflecting and you're in preparation, that you're going to exercise that sacrament anyways. But I wish it was in there, kind of.
I know, isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Maybe it's somewhere else in there, and this is just a portion of what they said. This might be trivia. I'm sure everybody knows this, but I'm going to say it because what if somebody hadn't heard this before? The ashes that are put on everybody's forehead, they're made from the palms that you receive on Palm Sunday,
right,
the prior year.
Right.
So you receive those palms, they're blessed, you take them home, you're supposed to keep them all year. You can't throw them away, they're blessed.
Right.
So you don't throw them away, you don't get rid of them. And then right before Ash Wednesday, you return them to your church. That's what they burn, and that becomes the ashes.
Yeah.
And
I always thought that Ash Wednesday was an exclusively Catholic tradition, and I recently learned that it's not.
Really?
Yeah, anybody who follows the liturgical calendar, Methodists, Lutherans, they all celebrate Ash Wednesday, and then receive ashes, and they use the palms from Palm Sunday from the year before.
Well, who knew?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that was good. I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you for that, Simon Balderas. And then when you get your ashes, leave them on for the day.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to wear them the next day.
Right.
But wear them proudly.
Yeah. I remember when I was a kid, I used to hate going to Ash Wednesday service in the morning because that meant I had to wear them all day through school and everything else. I used to hate that.
But you should wear it proudly. I can see that when you're a kid.
Yeah, as a kid.
Yeah. I always get a kick out of that. It's like somebody goes, oh, you have something on you. And I say, yes, I'm Catholic. It's Ash Wednesday.
Of course, yeah.
Okay, so I love that. This is going to sound really silly, but I think we should all take a class on how to put ashes on people's foreheads because I want a nice, clear cross.
You want a clear cross, yeah.
And I really don't do a good one. I've tried. I'm getting better at it, but it's a process.
I think if you use your index finger instead of your thumb, you'll be better at it.
I think that's not true.
Yeah. I've always gotten a good cross. I know a lot of people get the smudge.
Yeah.
But I've always gotten a good one.
And as it's coming at you, are you noticing what finger they're using?
No.
Okay, well, I want to practice this year before because I feel I'm giving a disservice to people when I don't do a good cross. So
yeah.
We'll be right back.
Rising anti-Semitism. New generations redefining how they connect with Jewish traditions. Changing dynamics among Jews around the globe. Take a deep dive into these topics and more on Mosaic, Exploring Jewish Issues, the podcast brought to you by the Jewish Federation of Palm Beach County. Hear from the thought leaders, politicians, scholars, and artists at the forefront of Jewish life today. Subscribe to Mosaic, Exploring Jewish Issues, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Well, I would imagine after you do 20 or 30 people that your hands are pretty ash-filled. And
they are.
It might be hard to give a good cross.
And I know during COVID when we had gloves on, it didn't work at all.
Oh, is that right?
No, it did not.
Interesting.
They wouldn't stay on.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay. So I agree with you about reconciliation, confession. I think that's just a huge part. And also, last year, I did an episode on confession as a part of this group.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I did Lent, prayer, fasting, and almsgiving, and also one on confession. So that would be episode 10, I believe. So that's just some facts about it. So I always have certain thoughts about Lent, what I think about it. I think of it as a time to be more focused and concentrated on prayer, on doing works of mercy and service, spiritual growth, my own spiritual growth, having more peace in my life during that time. Haha, I laugh. Having less distractions and luxuries. But like I said, Simon and I have been in Lent now for a few months. There's no luxuries. None of that. But I do think it's good to replace unnecessary and frivolous things with things that will draw you closer to Christ and the church and closer to becoming more holy.
Yeah.
So I also kind of feel that Lent, it should be more action, like actual really valuable things instead of just giving up chocolate. If you're going to give something up, it should be really hard, not something where it's like, I can live without this anyway. It's supposed to burn a little bit, you know what I mean? Maybe a lot. But these are just some things. Later in the episode, I'm going to talk about some ideas that people can use either individually, as couples, as families. So we'll talk about that later. But I want to talk to you, Simon, about Lent.
Okay.
Because I wish I could go back and be a little fly on the wall or little mouse in the corner, as the case may be, when you were growing up. I would like to see, because I'm very interested in people that were raised Catholic, since I wasn't.
Right.
And especially you, because I love you and I know like different things you've gone through, different things we've gone through together. And I'm just like really interested when you were being raised Catholic, some of these things, this is a big thing. Lent is a big thing.
Right.
And so I'm just really curious, like, what is your take on Lent, first of all, and what do you think about it?
Okay. Well, I have a big take on Lent, actually. I know that we're joking, not joking, that we've been going through months and months of Lent, but we have suffered for quite some time in different ways. And I also think that all of the lists and things and suggestions that people should or could do during Lent should be done all year around anyways. Prayer and meditation, fasting, almsgiving, reading the Bible, self-reflection, all of those things, going to attending extra church services, simplifying your life, giving up things. Aren't those things that we're called to do anyways as Christians?
Yes.
So I think
The answer is yes.
that it's great that this is a focus time season, just like Advent is a focus season time to reflect on different aspects of the Christian life. I think this is focused on that, but we should be doing all of the things reflecting on the things of Advent even now, and the things of Lent that are suggested all the time, year round. And we should be trying to refine our lives more and more as we mature in Christ, right?
Right, exactly.
And I do have to say that this year especially, when I think about when I was a kid, as you know, I grew up in poverty, and my parents were very religious, and they took Lent very, very seriously. So we already were living without a lot of things. So I knew that when Lent was coming, it kind of was a bummer because we would have to live with less than things. So it was a hard time for me. And the hardest part about it, to be honest, was the lack of understanding at that time. It was just harder. But I didn't really have a grasp on the meaning of it. You know, my parents, they did the best they could to educate us about what the purpose of Lent was and so forth. And I did go to catechism and learn the things, but it didn't, for whatever reason, at least for me, didn't sink in as much as it could have. It just was a time that was kind of not fun.
Not knocking your parents at all. It's more the general sense I'm getting about a lot of cradle Catholics is they don't always know why they're doing what they're doing.
Right.
And I think nowadays parents are becoming more educated about why we're doing what we're doing, trying to teach their children, as far as I can tell, that's a big thing more recently, because that's one of the biggest complaints I've heard about the Catholic Church is that people don't know what they're doing. And so they're not able to teach their children that. So catechizing people is really, really vitally important to our faith.
Right. Yeah. And
because we have a lot of things going on in the Catholic Church, a lot of, I don't want to call them rules, but it's a lot of things to know, because we're expected to do these things. And I would just think, just knowing kind of how you were raised, I would think that you weren't given the full story of what Lent was, what Advent was, what these different things were. And like you said, your parents did what they could, but basically it came down to, we have to have more things taken away, but no explanation of why.
Right. More things taken away and more things added. Like I remember my mom would say, we're doing the rosary morning and afternoon. So, we would have to add more stuff, it would made it harder and less food. And my mom really focused in on sacrifice and self-sacrifice, that sort of thing. And so we were already sacrificing. So fast forwarding now, where we've had a really hard time in a lot of different aspects of our life, financially and so forth, I really remember those times when I was a kid, but now it has a lot more meaning and a lot more weight. So when I reflect on the things that people do and are suggested to do for Lent, I really am awakened to the fact that, wow, we really should be doing this year round. And I know you do a lot of things year round, like you don't eat meat on Fridays, for example, and you do go to daily mass. You do a lot of things that already is on the list. But, I just think now, and especially now that I'm more devout and you're devout, that the meaning of it has really become quite rich for me.
Right. I agree. That to me is the goal, is to, when you go into Lent, coming up with these ideas, these habits, these things you're trying to do should really continue on. So, I have this thing that I tell everybody I can get my hands on, that if you're going to break a habit, some sort of habit, and you try it at other times of year and you fail at it, try eliminating a bad habit during Lent. Because first of all, you're going into Lent. You don't want to let Jesus down. He doesn't let us down. So if you come up with something like, I'm going to give up whatever, you start during Lent, you got 40 days to get a real good jump start on breaking a bad habit. And after the 40 days, when Lent is over, don't go back to it.
Yeah.
And then if you need an extra motivation, say, okay, well, Easter season is now, so it's 50 days. And then give up those bad habits.
Yeah.
Or get started in these things and go into them with such a good positive attitude that you say, I want to continue this. I really enjoy praying the rosary every day. I really enjoy going to the Adoration Chapel to pray once a day or once a week. Then it becomes something where it doesn't have to be temporary. Like you say, I like that you should want to do it all year. The thing with doing the no meat on Fridays, I mean, I think for a very long time, they didn't just have no meat during Lent. It was all year.
Right.
I don't know why on earth they changed that. That to me is silly.
Too hard.
Well, it's not too hard. That's so silly.
I know.
But anyway, so I just decided one year to just do it, every Friday. And so, it's things like that where I do in my daily life, I do have quite a regimented Catholic life. But there were a couple of things that I did start early. I was going to start them in Lent. And then I thought, no, I'm going to start them early, like the Adoration Chapel where I go every day now. Because it's just, I'm at Mass every day already. So then it's like, I'm going to walk over there, spend a little time with Jesus, and then move on with my day. So I started that a few months ago. And other than that, the other things I've been doing, and if you're not doing them, I encourage you to, not you necessarily, Simon, but my listeners to do those things. Those are good things to do.
I think that a lot of these things that people consider giving up or doing extra and so forth, they can seem daunting. But I also think that having a good perspective is super, super important. For example, I think about when I was a kid, I had a tough life. And then just recently I was reading about Saint Simeon, who lived on a column that was like maybe 5 feet in circumference for 30 years. He lived on it. People would bring him food and things like that. He never left the column. I mean, he was standing most of the time. During Lent, however, he did it with his arms raised for 40 days. Oh, yeah. So you think about how hard that would be in sacrificing for Lent and giving things up. Like, that's perspective to me.
Yeah.
So when you think of, oh, I'm going to give up chocolate, okay, but maybe you should give up. I know some people give up, for example, eating bread during that time. That's hard to do.
Yeah.
That's hard to do. Something tough. And when you are in those moments where let's just say you give up bread and you're really craving, you're like, boy, I sure want a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. That's the time to go into prayer. That's the time to reflect. And that's what it's for. That's the whole purpose.
Right. So that being said about the chocolate issue, let's just get that off the table. And I'm not picking on chocolate, but let's just use it as an example. So when Lent rolls around and people say, well, what are you giving up for Lent? Well, I'm giving up chocolate. Okay, well, that's great, but there's more to Lent than that. And I know it's become kind of this joke, not joke in the Catholic world where Lent is more than giving up chocolate. So yes, if you're going to give up chocolate or whatever it is that you're giving up, stop it for the 40 days for sure. And then, like I've said before, let's say you have a severe chocolate habit and you spend $5 a day on chocolate. Don't buy the chocolate, take the $5, put it in a jar, put it somewhere, put it in an envelope, and after the 40 days, take that money and give it to charity, okay? So that's with anything that you're giving up. Whatever money you spent on it, whether it's Starbucks, whether it's fast food, whatever it is, put it in an envelope, give it to charity. That's a good thing. But it needs to be not only that you're giving it up, but that you're processing why you're giving it up. It should hurt. It should be painful to give up whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And there should be a positive outcome of giving it up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So that's great. I'm all for giving things up. I really am. Things like that. I'm all for that. But I also am for adding like replacements or adding things into your Lent that are positive instead of just saying, I gave up chocolate. That's it. That's what I did. Okay. Well, great. What else did you do? So let's say you're giving up things like vices. Okay.
Mm.
So coffee, chocolate, fast food, wine. Those are the things you can put the money aside and give to charity. You could also give up vices of like screen time, TV, video games, cell phone usage. Use the time instead to read or learn about a saint or learn more about Jesus's life,
Mm-hmm.
or just interact with others.
Yeah, I think it's also a good time to journal in
Yes.
self-reflection
Yes.
and talk about that and really analyze what's going on with yourself.
Yes. Like why are those things so important to you?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yes. Excellent. You could give up bad habits like smoking, drinking, overeating. Replace these things with healthy alternatives. You could give up bad habits of gossiping, anger, laziness, jealousy. Replace those things with calm, peace, finding something nice and encouraging to say. Like instead of gossiping about somebody, think of something nice to say about
Mm-hmm.
them. So replace those bad habits. I just think it's like, it doesn't have to just be chocolate or wine. It could be these other things. There's lots of things you could give up and replace. So I'd like to also know more about your memories of Lent growing up. Like, what do you remember about it? Besides, so you've already said you got ashes on your forehead and you didn't like it if they were put on in the morning. But do you remember, like, how your parents, did they do certain things besides, like, making you, not have as many things? Was there anything you distinctly remember about Lent?
I didn't really try to recall anything specifically.
Well, you kind of said, I guess you said you had to give up more things and you would have to pray the rosary.
We did the rosary. We did adoration. My mom would take us to adoration.
So she consciously was engaging you guys in Lent.
Lent was a big deal at my house.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Big deal.
And then do you recall if those things that then they ended at Easter and then you were off the hook another
It's
Easter?
like, whew. Yeah. Yeah. No, it was, I looked at it as a kid as a relief. When you're a kid and you have days of hunger, it sucks. And when you have more days of hunger, it really sucks.
Yeah.
And that's what it was like. It hurt really bad. And it made me really see the world a lot differently.
Yeah.
It did.
But I am wondering if you knew why you were having to.
I knew why. I knew what sacrifice was. I used to pray a lot when I was a young kid on my own. My parents wouldn't ask me to do this, but I would. I would pray late at night, into the night, on my knees, on the floor. I knew what suffering was. I mean, I grew up many, many years without even a bed. I slept on the floor.
Yeah, you certainly did know suffering.
Yeah. So I knew that Lent meant more, more of that. Right. Again, it's a matter of perspective. Like, I didn't have to have my arms raised for 40 days.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of perspective. Now, it sounds kind of sad, but it taught me a lot. I feel it created a big sense of humility as a young kid.
Right.
I really knew what that meant to be humble. I knew that when you would do these things, that you couldn't brag about them. You had to keep them in silence. That's why I would pray in my room for hours by myself. I wouldn't tell my parents or anything. It did sink in, even though I didn't maybe outwardly understand completely what Lent was and what it, all of the aspects of it. But I did know it was a time to get closer to God. And I think that's probably the biggest impression that it made on me.
Right. And I've always kind of had that attitude going into Lent, where I think probably the first year, maybe year 1 and 2, I was thinking more about just what I was giving up. And then as I've gone along, like I say, it is about giving things up, but it's also about what are you replacing it with? What are you adding into your life to make you closer to the Lord and make you block out a lot of the noise in the world?
Yeah, prayer and conversation.
Yeah.
And I do that now when I'm in despair or having a tough moment. I just start dialoguing with Christ.
Yeah. Well, and I do think, like, back to what you said about we should be doing this all year long, but the world is a lazy place. The world wants to do very selfish things. They don't want to put in time and effort necessarily on getting closer to the Lord.
Yeah.
So I think it's one of those times of the year where it shakes people up.
It is.
But not in a bad way, but it makes it where it's like, oh, it's Lent. I better get to it here. Because it's the same thing with like a New Year's resolution.
Yeah.
People start out all gung-ho, and then 5 days later, they're done with it,
Yeah.
This is this is a lot more serious than a New Year's resolution.
It is. And I personally think that I may be a little extreme for some in saying that it should be all year round, but you got to remember, I was homeless for 4 years right out of high school. I know what it means to live tough,
right,
and hard. So I don't want to say, hey, give me up chocolate. I kind of laugh at that. But I know what it means to skip breakfast, lunch, and dinner for 3 days.
Right.
It's no fun.
Well, and you're talking to a girl that doesn't. I mean, when you're saying it's extreme to do it all year, that
I know
that's my jam.
Well, I just don't want your audience to think, oh my gosh, I'm not good enough, or things like that.
No, yeah, that's true. No, we think you're good enough. I just think people are capable of doing more than they think they can.
Right.
So that's the thing.
Yes.
Is that Lent is supposed to stretch you.
Right. And that's what I mean by perspective,
Right.
living on a post for 30 years.
Right.
That's
And I do think I know you've had that experience. I've definitely had moments of my life where I've been without, and it's not fun and it is rough. And there are a lot of people out there struggling and really suffering. And the things that we're proposing for people to do during Lent, they're not going to kill you.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to make you stronger.
Right.
They're going to draw you closer and closer to Christ. They're going to really show you what you're made of.
Right. It's true. And the point is, no matter what you do, that you're reflecting, that you're repenting, and that you're preparing.
That's right.
That's the most important thing. And maybe it is just giving up chocolate. Maybe that's all you need.
Yeah. But I think whatever you're going to do, I'm a person who really likes a Lenten plan. So I encourage my listeners to do a Lenten plan. Now, that being said, when you do a Lenten plan where it's like, these are the goals I have for Lent, it's fluid. It's not like, well, I have these 10 things, I got to stick with them, I can't vary. The goal is to keep with the 10. Let's say I'm using 10 as an example. I don't care how many you have. It's your list. It's your Lenten plan. But come up with a plan. Come up with the goals that you have for Lent and beyond, hopefully, your goals. And then if you want to add more, great.
Yeah.
If something is just not working, don't beat yourself up over it, but don't cave and throw in the towel too soon.
Yeah.
Don't say, oh my gosh, I can't possibly do this. Adjust.
Right.
Try to make this something that is going to work.
Yeah.
Your goal is to see it through the 40 days so you can feel very accomplished and good, that you're taking steps to holiness, that you're taking steps to become closer to Christ and preparing. There's so many things you can do where you won't fail.
Yeah. I think one of those things is acts of kindness. I think we can do all kinds of things to help people and put a smile upon somebody's face.
Absolutely.
Doesn't have to be money. It could be a hug. It could be just a conversation. You see somebody lonely. All those kinds of things. And those things do make you feel closer to Christ. You're doing his work.
Yeah, because anybody you look at, you're supposed to be seeing him.
Yeah.
So definitely, these things that, especially when I get to the list of ideas, they don't necessarily cost money to do these things. These are things from your heart. These are things that are giving of yourself, sacrificing things. That's a big thing with me, is that it's not all about just giving things up. It's about what can you do that will, like, action things.
Yeah,
like
I think another thing would be renewing relationships with friends.
Yes.
Things, maybe you've had a falling out. Maybe you've just grown apart. But just reaching out. Hey, how you doing?
Heal something.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So renewal.
Yeah.
Renewal, thinking about renewal. All of the things that, again, Christ wants us to do year round.
Year round. But that's what I'm saying, is maybe this will be like, it'll light a fire under people. Make this the year that you really throw yourself into Lent, and you not only have a successful Lent, but that you continue it past Lent.
Yeah.
Like, make this the year. Why can't it be the year?
Yeah. I also think that we live in complicated times, and we are required to do so much. There's so much noise in the world. Maybe it's a time just to really simplify your life.
Simplify your life.
Clear out.
Remember at the beginning of the year, what did I say? My theme of the year was going to be simplify.
Yeah.
And we've already started.
Yes.
We've been eliminating some things.
Yes.
But yeah, I think we have a very noisy world.
Yeah.
I think we have a very distracting world. And it's so easy to cater to that all the time. During Lent, block that out. Make that your excuse if you need one. Oh, it's Lent. I can't do that because it's Lent. I have to do this instead. Not have to. I get to do this because it's Lent. So, yes, I agree with you that there's a lot of distraction. There's a lot of noise. There's a lot of things that are vying for our attention to take us away from Christ. And that is sin.
Yeah.
Those things that are separating you from Christ, separating you from valuable things, that's sin. So now's the time. This is the moment to get started, get a really good start on Lent. make your Lenten plan, be flexible with it, but have the goal that you're going to follow what you put down on paper.
And I think it's important to be realistic and make it doable for you. And if you stumble and fail, just reflect on it, pick yourself up, and keep moving forward.
Right, because Christ will forgive you for that. He's wanting us to get better.
Yeah.
He's not expecting us to be perfect. Nobody's perfect. He's the only one that's perfect. So it's like, we just have to admit it. We have to acknowledge it. That's a part of the whole journey of Lent.
Mm-hmm.
You're not just going to skate through it. If you are just skating through Lent, you got to up your game. You're not doing it properly. If you're skating through it, take it up a notch or 2 or 12, you know?
Yeah. Well, I do have to say one thing that is hard for me during Lent too is, unlike you, me compared to you, I'm a very disorganized person. I don't like to admit that, honestly, but I just happen to have this sort of artistic bend, and sometimes I am a little scattered, or even sometimes too hyper-focused on something. And so I find it hard to focus. I don't know what I'm trying to say.
To get a Lenten plan.
To get a Lenten plan and to be organized about it and consistent.
Well, I think it can seem very daunting to people, to some people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm sure it's daunting to you when I say that. To me, I'm like, Lenten plan, it's a list. I love lists.
Yeah.
But to you, it's like, well, that's a lot. And then to stick with it, I know that that's probably stressful. And none of this is supposed to be, like, I don't want people to say, you're failing before you even begin.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm not saying that. I'm not giving you a challenge so that you go, oh, forget it. I can't do it. I'm not even going to try.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about that. It's very personal. Lent is very personal.
Yeah.
And so it could be one thing on your list.
Mm-hmm.
Your Lenten plan could be one thing, but whatever it is, do it to the best of your ability with the best attitude that you are going to succeed. You're not going to fail. That's why I'm saying start off with a small list and like click along and go, wow, I'm doing great. I'm going to add this other thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's supposed to be something that you can do, but you have to stretch yourself.
Yeah.
But everybody should do it differently. I'm not saying, oh, you have to do it just like I do it. I'm a lunatic.
Yeah.
I mean, my whole just daily thing, I don't expect anybody to do what I do in a day.
I can't keep up.
And waking up at 3:30 in the morning, people think I'm crazy.
Yeah.
But I love my thing I do every morning, my little process. And I don't ask anybody to do that with me. Mm-hmm. I do it because it's what I feel really good with.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, you, Simon Balder, some of my listeners, come up with your Lenten plan that you feel is going to stretch you.
Mm-hmm.
There's no test at the end. I'm not going to say to you every day, well, did you do your Lenten plan?
Mm-hmm.
I'll encourage you if you need my encouragement. Get friends to encourage you.
Yeah. And I think when you say it's an individual thing, I also think it can be a family thing.
Oh, sure.
That's what my mom incorporated, was a family thing. We would say rosaries together and all those kinds of things. And kids are squirmy and don't always like to sit for 20 minutes or however long it takes you to say the rosary. So it's hard. But if you explain it to them why we're all doing this, we're doing it for Lent during this time, then maybe it'll be a good thing for them. Maybe they'll really enjoy it.
Well, and one of the things I wanted to say is when I read my list of some ideas, like I said, there's some things that are individual, some things that are for couples, and some things that are for families. And when we're recording this, we haven't gone yet, but we're going to a couples retreat, and they'll be talking about doing things as a couple during Lent. So as we're recording this, we haven't gone yet. We'll let you know on the next episode. But I'm excited about it because I'm looking for some new ideas for things, especially for us to do together as a couple for Lent. I think that'll be cool. I can't wait to see what they come up with. So I'm excited about that. But so prior to this year, what are some of the things you've done in the past for Lent?
I have so many different things, honestly. I've given up so many different things. I've given up meals. I mean, even now, I probably can't do that because I only eat one time a day.
Yeah.
But given up sleep, more prayer, added more prayer. Past years, I've tried giving up certain things and failed as well. And I found my limitations, but I really meditated on those things and really asked myself, what's wrong here? Why can't you do these things? I mean, nowadays, for me, it's important to give up some of the things that are distracting, that are taking away from my relationship with Christ, like maybe watching too much social media, watching too many movies, because I watch a lot of movies. Some of the things that I spend a lot of time in, I want to give to spending time with Christ.
And you know, it's interesting how much time we put into things. And I'll find that sometimes I'll be sitting looking at social media and I'll think, oh my gosh, I've been sitting here for 10 minutes doing that. It's like it goes by very fast.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if we're mindful about things, I appreciate also that you say that you've tried things and it didn't necessarily work. And I appreciate that you're saying that you really should pray about it and think about it and wonder why. Not you, just you, people. I think that's really important because I think it's good to set a goal and all these things, but if you can't meet it, why? And to not think of yourself as a failure, but to think like, what about that thing can I not give up?
Yeah. I will say this, and I'm not really sure why, but I will say that when I was younger, I mean, like a little kid, it was a lot easier for me to give up things. My life was more simplified. Nowadays, the more complicated my life has become, the harder it is to let go of things.
Yeah.
For some reason.
Well, I know we've been selling some of our things and it's like hard, but other times it's freeing, you know, especially when you get rid of a bad habit. And we all know what bad habits are. We all know what frivolous things are that we don't need. And it does seem a little hard at first, but then when you get rid of these bad habits, it does feel good. It does.
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying the 40 days, get up over that hump, and then things should be easier. Or giving things to people where you think, you know how they say one man's trash is another man's treasure?
Yeah.
So like you give something to somebody and they love it so much. They're just thrilled.
Yeah.
You know, it's such a good feeling of like, oh, that thing's just been sitting in a box somewhere. And somebody else is just like, it's the best thing ever.
Yeah.
So simplifying and making somebody else's life happier because of the sacrifices.
I will say one of the things that I probably have done the most is fasting. Fasting with just water, or I've done different types of fasting, but giving up a lot of just eating.
Interesting. Well, so what are your plans this year? Do you have any? I'm not going to hold you to them. We'll have it on tape and forever, but I'm not going to hold you to Do you have any ideas? You have a few days to decide.
I know. I have kind of a running list, but I will say that the most important part of what I'm doing is just that I'm spending more time in prayer, in conversation with Christ. So I'm going to give up some things and just really focus on being more reflective and in conversation with Christ. And I am going to also be going to confession more.
Yeah, that's a good one. So this year, in addition to what I'm already doing, which we already talked about, part of my Lenten plan is to read more Catholic books, which I've already started. I started at the New Year. I got a jump on it. And it's so far so good. It's going because I really struggle with just reading books. So I've been really proud of myself that I've been doing that. So that's one thing. I want to work on virtues more this Lent, virtues of prudence, justice, temperance, and fortitude, really focusing on those things. I struggle with some of those things. And when I'm feeling like I'm slipping into these bad habits, I want to pray more about it. I'm going to ask the Lord to help me to stop those things. I want to purge things and people that are toxic and draining and unnecessary in my life. I'm trying to simplify in all facets of my life, and anything dirty, torn, messy, and toxic, I want to get rid of, whether that's people or things. I don't want to be weighed down by that. I want to work much harder. One of my main focuses is to not give in to negativity and worry, and to trust God's plan more. I want to try to catch myself every time I'm really feeling that I'm not genuinely trusting His will. I want to really focus in on that and just pray more about that. That's been a thing I think I'm not doing well in. And then I want to go to Stations of the Cross this year. I used to do that when I first became Catholic, and I haven't for whatever reason, so I want to go back to that. And so that's something I'm looking forward to. I just think it's, for anybody that hasn't been to Stations of the Cross, it's just nice to be in the church doing that and focused on the passion of the Christ is really something we should have in the forefront of our brain, just everything He did for us. If you haven't done it, please go check it out. So let's get into my ideas. Are you ready?
Okay.
I'm just going to go down the list because some of these we've talked about, but then it'll be more concise in this way. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So again, you could do these individually, as a couple, with friends, or as a family. A lot of these things I'm going to say, you can encourage your children to do in all different ages. You can start your children knowing what Lent is about and explaining it to them based on their level of understanding, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
I know you're going to briefly talk about this list that you have here. I think that it's such a good list that you should make that available to your listeners on your website or somewhere.
Oh my goodness. What a great idea.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's do that.
Okay.
So I will give you this list, but we will also provide it so you can go to my website and they can print it.
Yeah, I'll make it a downloaded link. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. It's not what you know, it's who you know, right? I have Simon Balderas in my back pocket. Okay, so we'll do that. So I'm going to give you this list, but then, let's do that. Ooh, maybe I'll even make a checklist, or we'll make it into who knows? I'll make it into something cool. Okay, so we will have that on the website, freshcatholic.com. So what I was saying about children is the more you explain to them what Lent is about, with their level of understanding, that's important for them to understand why they're doing what they're doing. That should be in everything you're doing, teaching your children in the Catholic faith, so that they understand what they're doing. And they will learn by example. If the family is doing something together, they're going to learn that as a family. One of my favorite things, like this is a little off topic, but not really. We have all these children coming to daily Mass lately. One of my favorite things I'm noticing is that they are learning how to genuflect. They're very good about doing it. And these are little children. They're learning, peace be with you. They all turn around and say it. It's darling. Peace be with you. Peace be with you. So cute. They're kneeling. They can't see over the pew, but they're kneeling at the appropriate time. So all of these things, they're learning by example. So it's really important during Lent, when you're doing this Lenten plan with them, that you're doing it with them. They understand why they're doing it. So here is some ideas. Pray together. Pray together as a family or as a couple. Pray before work. Pray before work or school, at mealtime, and before bed. So that's a great thing to do. Listen to Fresh Catholic daily for the daily Mass readings. Do that together. And that way you're not missing the daily readings, even if you're unable to go to daily Mass. Come up with a charity together to donate the money you saved on the vices that you're giving up, like we talked about earlier in this episode. So come up with a charity together, either as a couple or as a family, and say, oh, this is what we're going to give the money to. Do a service project together for your church or your school, or for a family that you know is in need, or an elderly person that needs you. Come up with a service project that you do together. Purge toys, clothes, household items, and give to charity. Again, have as a couple or as a family, come up with a charity that you think would most benefit from it. Cook meatless meals together on Fridays. Come up with a menu, and so that they can help you to cook the meatless meals. Also, give up meat entirely for the whole Lent. Limit screen time. Put your phones down. Talk and interact with each other instead. Take that time that you would be doing TikTok and social media and, read a Bible story instead. Start a gratitude book or poster. So cut out shapes ahead of time. They could be crosses. Crosses are great, actually. Cut out shapes ahead of time and have everyone write something that they're thankful for the day and post it on the poster or put it in a book. So let's say you wanted to have a keepsake Lent 2024 gratitude book. So you do the little shapes, everybody writes what they're thankful for the day, and you can glue it in the book. Isn't that a great idea? I just came up with that today. I love that. Or a poster that you hang on the wall and the children can tape or put a pin in the shapes, okay, so that they can see after 40 days. Can you imagine how many crosses are going to be on that? A lot. It's going to be great. It makes you think at the end of the day, when you're sitting down for your meal together or before bed, have everybody do that. That's a great thing, and it's very visual. Watch the Catholicism series by Bishop Barron. It's amazing. It's one of the things that really got me excited about becoming Catholic. Even if you are Catholic and you were raised Catholic, it's a really good thing to sit down and watch over Lent. They're very doable. They're like an hour long each one. I think there's 9 episodes. It's really important, and it'll teach you a lot. And Bishop Barron is very magnetic to listen to. Watch The Passion of the Christ. I watch it every year on Good Friday, and it is excruciatingly painful to watch. Watch it. It's important. Not with small children, but I really encourage you to watch that. It's very visual. It's very devastating, but it'll really make you so grateful and thankful for the Lord. Read the Gospels of Matthew and Mark during Lent and Luke and John for the season of Easter. That way you're you're reading all 4 Gospels, and it's the exact amount of time. It's almost exactly spot on the amount of days. Attend Stations of the Cross every Friday, or at least a couple of times during Lent. Attend Mass, of course, on Sunday, but at least one more day during the week during Lent. If you want to really up your game, go every day during Lent. Go to confession at least once during Lent, but try to go once a week or at least once a month. Go together as a couple or a family. I don't mean go into confession together. I mean go as a group. Get in line and go together. It'll be a good family thing to do. Attend and explain the Holy Week events to your children. Learn about them for yourself as well if you don't know about them. Learn why we're going to Holy Thursday, Good Friday, what does Holy Saturday entail, and of course Easter. But explain Holy Week to your children and learn about it yourselves. It's valuable and important. I'll probably have more on the list on the website, but that's what I have for you right now. So that's my Lenten episode. And now go get started, work on your Lenten plan, make it a good one, and then go. Make Lent 2024 a goodie. You too, Simon Balderas.
Okay.
Make it a good one.
I will.
Okay, I'll be there with you.
Okay.
We'll encourage each other.
Okay.
And keep an eye out for Fresh Catholic 40, the countdown to Easter, on my social media.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you. Love you. Bye.
Thank you for joining me today. Now go out and be a bright light in someone's life. And remember, be focused, be faithful, and be fresh.
Fresh Catholic is produced, edited, and recorded at Wonder Mouse Studios in Ventura, California.